Over 20 Israelis have been killed in Palestinian terror attacks since the beginning of October. Dozens more have been injured. Dr. Anat Berko is a Knesset member from the Likud party and a lieutenant colonel in the reserves. She's also one of the world's foremost experts in terrorism. Thanks for joining us.
Shalom, Natasha. Chag Sameach. Happy Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah. So let me begin by asking you, is there truth to media reports saying that some of the Palestinian security prisoners released in the Gilad Shalit deal are now forming terror cells? If so, what do you know about their activities?
Sure, it's true. It was also at the last operation in Gaza we saw those people involved in terrorism. And we know that they are recidivists. And to be a terrorist, it's career. Many of them come back and forth to jail, even if they are not released. And when they're released, for sure, like more than 70% commit terrorism again. So it's awful.
What kind of legislation is the government passing right now to try to combat this recent wave of terror?
I'm leading, there are a few legislation. I can say that I'm focusing in my work in the Knesset to counter terrorism. And one of them, it's like using shooting range for terrorists and criminals that sometimes they use to get training. Shooting range or original shooting range, a normative one, and they use it just to train. And this is something that I dealt with my first legislation. Another one is military court, that you can transform evidence from military court to civilian court and use that production of the military court to civilian sue or something like that. And also criminal record of terrorists that will be open to everybody, that they can see also the not just criminal activity but terrorism activity at the same time when policemen just stop somebody or something like that. And there are also another legislation around minors. We see more and more minors involved in terrorism. It's not new, I must say. I met with suicide bombers that had failed and also were sent by the dispatchers to blow themselves up. But we see a use and abuse of minors to terrorism. So between the age of 12 and 14, it's my legislation say that if there will be minors in this age will be involved in terrorism, the court will be able to send them to prison, especially when they are a murderer. So if they are not so young to murder people, and we saw stabbing by a 13-year-old boy, and that he stabbed another boy in the same age. So they will go to a closed shelter or something like that, and after the age of 14, the court will decide if they will go to finish their term in prison.
We've seen that a lot of the assailants in this recent wave of terror have been teenagers, young people, and I guess there are a lot of complications in addressing that issue. I mean, you're trying to make the age younger to be able to convict, children terrorists, but what are the complications that come with doing that?
You know, it's not new, and I feel very sorry, even as a mother, to see those kids that they brainwashed, and the whole education that they get, as I call it in my books, is to be a shaheed or not to be a martyr or not to be. So when they're playing in the streets, when their faces are, covered, and they pretend to be soldiers and children, and they call it this game, stabbing the Israeli or stab the Jew, because I'm not speaking about Israelis, I must say, Natasha. They're speaking about Jews. And this hatred that poisoning their minds, do not let them choose in their life the right path in their life, the normative path that we in the West cherish and wish for our children. So we see those children that when you stop them in the street or ask them something, what do you want to be when you grow up, they wouldn't say a teacher or an engineer or a doctor. They will say, I would like to be a shaheed. So this is something very, very dangerous, because we see now youth, not just, I'm speaking about teenagers and young people, join ISIS. Also, some of them, Israeli Arabs, Israeli citizens, that this is also one of my legislations that to take their citizenship. If they want to be involved with Daesh, they cannot wounded in Syria and come to get the health care in Israel. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. So we see those people, and even American girls and British girls travel to Syria to marry with shaheeds or to marry with the mujahideen, the fighters as they call them. And they want thrill and adventures, and they feel like this is the zone that we can have a social life, and it's very romantic. It sounds very romantic for them. But we know what it is. It's just murder and killing and raping in the name of Allah.
Israel also has another policy of demolishing the homes of terrorists. From your experience, does this move have an impact in deterring further attacks?
You know, Natasha, there is a curse, and I'm from Iraqi Jewish family. I can tell you that I understand deep from inside the mentality. There is a curse in Arabic that say, "Ikhrab betak," your house will be demolished. This is a curse in Arabic, like a disaster. For sure, it's very influential. We don't need to use it like in general, but if there is some terrorist who did something or run over people, carry suicide bombing, stab or try to kill Israelis, this is this is a deterrence. And you see that many parents come and give the information to the security forces because of that, because they don't want that their child will put the whole family in risk to be homeless. And this is something I think that very effective, not to do it like, you know, the whole street or something, just specifically to punish the specific guy and his family that carry out this terror attack. We're speaking about collective society. It's not like in the West. And they have the responsibility to each other. So I think that it's very effective.
So the final question is, when do you think that this current wave of terror is going to end? Will there be an end to it?
Natasha, since I was born in Israel, we ask the same question. And we have waves of many kinds of and forms of terrorism. It will end, and perhaps after that something else will start. But here I can say that something happening in the world. It's not just about Israel. You know, I had Hanukkah candles lighting in the embassy of the Christian embassy in Jerusalem. And I said, nothing starts with the Jews. We saw what's happening in Paris. We saw what's happening in California. And September 11, and take it to other places, and the 7/7 in London, and in Madrid. It's not just sporadic things. There is a World War III, and we need to know it's between Sunni and Shia, and also both of them against the West. So the West must be very careful and look at Israel as a front line that fight this terrorism against terrorism, and to support us and to help us, because they will need this whole experience that we have. And the other thing, it's on the way to their places, metro stations, malls, restaurants, you know, cafe, stadiums, and other places. So I wish that we wouldn't have terrorism, and in this Hanukkah there is light to everybody in this world. But we cannot ignore that this is the reality when you have ISIS and you have the Shia version of ISIS like Iran and Hezbollah, and we cannot ignore this. So I think that we need to be ready.
Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Berko.